I split life, as we know it, history, into two eras. So I think there's the era of old trans and the era of new trans. And the era of old trans goes up to about 2017, I'd say, around that period. And then the era of new trans is everything after that. And these are two wildly different ways of looking at the trans experience. So up until 2017, the way that we thought of the trans experience was like it wouldn't have been like, because I lived in Brighton, as I say, I live in Brighton, and you would sometimes see a fella in a dress 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But if you'd spoken to him at the time, you said like, why are you wearing a dress? He might say, well, I know I'm a man, but like I feel more comfortable in women's clothes, and I've always related to women, and I've always identified with women. But then when this shift happened around 2017, people went from saying that they identify with women to I identify as a woman. And so we went from saying I feel like something to I am something. And the repercussions of that little shift affect literally everything. Like it is all, the entire problem that we have now is all down to this shift. And I can give you myriad examples, but like, we had Marcus Evans on the show, a whistleblower from the Tavistock. He'd been there for like 35 years, consultant, psychotherapist, I think. And he said, like in the old days, before this big shift and everything, if someone comes in saying, I'm really distressed, like I feel like trapped in the wrong body or whatever, the treatment pathway for them was exploratory therapy. So it's like, let's look at your life in the round. Let's look at, your relationship with your parents, relationship with your peers. Has there been any abuse, any trauma? What are your expectations of what it actually means to be a man or a woman in the world? Talk us through that. And all these different things. And they explore those things. But when this new kind of way of thinking of saying it's your identity and it's who you are rather than just feelings that you have came in, you can't do that anymore. Because if your gender is who you are, and it's not that you feel like a boy, you
can't treat something that you are.
Yeah.
Quite, yeah. I mean, if it's like, because it would be transphobic. It'd be like someone with Down syndrome going into the doctor. They don't try to cure your Down syndrome, or they don't try and cure you of being black. It's just like, do you know what I mean? Like, because that would be
identity.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not even your identity. It's who you are.
It's who you are.
It's intrinsic to your. So this is the thing. So like, there's in the old days, it was seen as, again, the reason I'm giving this 2017 cutoff point is because something strange happened there. I think it might be to do with people needing to shore up their sense of being a good person in the wake of Brexit and Trump. Very, very polarizing year 2016, and people were desperate to kind of, I think, convince themselves and others that they were on the right side, and this was the thing that came along. And you have certain things that came along around that time, like India Willoughby, former guest of the show, was on Celebrity Big Brother in 2018.
I'm a real woman, Amanda. I want you to know that.
Yes,
real woman, okay? I'm glad that's sinking in. I'm going to say it one more time so it really penetrates. Yes. I am a real woman, okay?
And then obviously around that time, you see the emergence of the phrase like trans women are women. And in fact, if you think about it, when was the last time you heard someone say, I identify as a woman? They don't do it anymore. They don't even say that anymore. So the identifies even been dropped. So now it's who you are. And as I say, so once, I thought, so when I read Time to Think, the book about the Tavistock, I had this idea in my head that the kids are coming along to the Tavistock, being referred, and there must be some it can't just be that they rubber stamped them and said, puberty blockers.
There's adults in the room. It's all not the way that people say in the media. It's all being properly looked into.
And you would think that because you're like, this is a place of clinicians. It's on the NHS. It's being overseen. There's no way. And you read the book and you're like, oh, flip, it actually was like that. Like there was so much intervention from from like mermaids and other like politicized bodies, and such a culture of fear that they were literally just being like, okay, they had this model called gender affirming care, which is an Orwellian sort of twisting of words, really, because it's like, to really affirm someone would be to say you're brilliant just the way you are, and you don't need to change, and you don't need to try and fit into these sex stereotypes, and you go for it. But anyway, so this affirming care, which comes in with this idea of it's who you intrinsically are, that just made everything a problem. It sort of solidified it, and it became the gold standard, not just the gold standard of care, but like the American Psychological Association and all these top bodies said this is the way to care. And if you're not doing that, if you're just exploring it like in the old days, you're kind of casting doubt on their identity and who they intrinsically are. And it's not that they've got a problem, they've just discovered the truth of who they are. But this problem, this shift from I feel like to I am, this old trans way of thinking and this new trans way of thinking, has affected everything else as well. So it's not just autistic and gay and other vulnerable children being treated because of this. In my mind, a massive medical scandal and medical neglect. But it's also we see it in every area, like in terms of women's spaces, because it's like old trans. You've got a man who, he feels like a woman, he feels comfortable in women's clothes, fine, but he's not going in the women's change rooms because he's not entitled to, he's not a woman. But now it's like, well, he is a woman, and therefore, he's entitled to that space. And this is why I think a lot of people just think, I don't get this trans argument, like, why can't we just live and let live, and why can't they just reconcile? Because it can't be reconciled.
It's a conflict of rights.
Yeah.
It's a conflict of rights. And so the only way that we can deal with these problems is by going back just a few years ago, just 7-8 years ago, whatever, to, live and let live, wear what you want, call yourself what you want, like, that's fine. And I don't mind, I don't care. Like, no one cares how someone dresses and chooses to live their, express themselves. But I'm sorry, we can't overreach into the area of you actually are this.